Hello, friends. Welcome back to another live stream. We're here to talk about the five greatest secrets to Game Master success. This is GM Philosophy. I'm the GM Philosopher. We already got some people in the chat. We got Stuart in the chat. Hello, Stuart. Stuart says secret sauce. Yeah, baby. That's what we're talking about. The secret sauce. This is what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to check my audio real quick. Sorry, guys. I'm a little stuffy. All right, I think the audio is looking good. I do think that we are looking good for the audio. Audio good? Excellent. All right, I think we're good. I'm gonna throw these bad boys away. Not like literally throw them away, but we're gonna, we're gonna move on. All right, guys. Who we got here? We got Blue Rose Lion in here. Hello, Blue Rose. If you're in the chat, drop a comment. Let me know who's here so I can say hi, guys. Kayla's in the chat. Got to make it to a live stream today. Good to see you, Kayla. Super pumped about tonight's game. Pumped to rock and roll. We're gonna have Throck and Tudor back in the game. Pan Piper says, just saw your post. Heck yeah, Pan Piper, great to see you. Super pumped about yesterday's session. Super pumped for the next one. All right, guys, we're talking about the five greatest secrets to Game Master success. And you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. These are secrets to Game Master success. My lighting is a little weird, guys, because I have my window open. And for some reason, the camera keeps adjusting. But it's okay. Even if it's in the dark, I will still be talking. All right. This one is important. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to disclose. You have perhaps been clickbaited, my friends, into this because here's the truth. Yes, these are the five secrets to Game Master success. But I believe in my life, gives it a cinematic nuance. Yes. I believe in my life, what I have come to learn is that these are the secrets to success, no matter what you're trying to succeed at. Whether you're trying to succeed at relationships, at business, whether you're trying to be amazing at your job, whether you're trying to be great raising your dogs, whether you're trying to be an amazing game master, right? Whether you're trying to start a side hustle, whether you're trying to, be a better parent. The truth is that the secrets to success are universal. And while the details may change, the core foundations of success remain the same. Now, these are not just my ideas. These are ideas I have acquired by listening to, studying, reading some of the great success stories, some of the people I look up to most in life. Stuart says, wow, not just game secrets, life secrets. Bring it on, philosopher. Heck yeah. So anyway, these are not like my trademarked secrets. These are secrets that I have learned from people I admire by reading their books, listening to their podcasts, and just basically studying them. And when I started applying this framework to my D&D games, especially now with the paid games, guys, the paid games that I'm running are going so well. It's such a night and day difference from what they were when I started back in the beginning of January. I've learned a lot of hard lessons along the way, but you're going to see that process is built into this framework. Okay, so this is very important. So let's dive in. Let's start with number one. Set a goal. Okay. I think that I probably learned this first from Arnold Schwarzenegger, reading his book, Education of a Bodybuilder, and listening to some of his speeches and podcasts. You have to set a goal in life, and this speaks to being intentional, but you have to set a goal for your game. And this speaks to being intentional at the table. Okay. Game masters who just let fate decide, who just let the randomness of the universe decide what their game is going to be about, where it's going to go, what the purpose is, they're not ever going to find their success. There is no benchmark. They're more likely to wander around aimlessly in the context of trying to run a game. Not having clarity on what you want to accomplish can really backfire. And I understand wanting to be flexible, but that's not what we're talking about. We're going to talk about that a little later on. So, what does this mean to set a goal? Well, let me tell you what this means to me when I'm talking about running games. So, I have set a pretty specific goal for the role I want my D&D games to play in my life. Stuart says 11 viewers, 3 likes. Let's go liking. Heck yeah. Hit that thumbs up button. I really appreciate all of you. And I'm so happy to see so many people here. If you want to introduce yourself, drop a comment. Let's talk. I would love to get to know you. Join the live stream crew. Also join our Discord. Links in the description. Come join us. I think we're at 600 GMs, I think. But anyway. All right. So my goal right now with my paid games, well, any games really, that's the truth. Right now, all the games I'm running are on Start Playing, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to ever run a game for my friends and family either. But all of my games are going to fall into a pretty specific goal structure, and here's what it is. My goal with running games right now in my life is to tell the greatest stories of the greatest characters in this world that are possible, and to facilitate that the best that I can. Now, I don't actually have, notice what I don't have built into my goals. I do not have built into my goals aspirations to make more money running games. This is because I've decided on a different path. And I've talked about that in a recent video, but part of my goal with these games is to tell the greatest stories possible, but then I want to learn how to get better at that and turn that into YouTube content. So really, a huge goal of me even running games is so that I'm in the trenches to fuel my YouTube and content, to further the bigger overarching goal for me of empowering game masters to run better games. So set a goal for what you want to accomplish, and that's going to decide a lot of things about your games. Stuart says, if you do something very well, people will appreciate that and the money will come. Doing a great job pays because you're trying to do a great job. 100%. I totally agree. I believe this is an abundance mentality, and I believe that this is really important. Mythos says hello. Hello, Mythos. Great to see you in the chat. All right. Let's continue on with secret number 2. Launch and be fearless about it, okay? When you are thinking about setting up a game, thinking about starting a game, I cannot tell you the number of times I hear in the YouTube comments, in the Discord, even just talking to people, oh, well, I could never do that. I could never, I don't know enough about the game. I don't know about the rules enough. I've never, I haven't even played that much. I could never run a game. I hear people say all the time, oh, I've been GMing for years, but I don't have near enough experience to run a game. I'll start playing, right? I don't have any, there's no reason, I should be able to do that, blah, blah, blah. Where is this coming from? Okay. Now, if somebody wants, let's put it this way. If someone doesn't want to be a game master, that's okay. We don't all have to be game masters. But if you want to be a game master, if you want to run games, and you think to yourself, oh, that would be so much fun, but there's something holding you back. Maybe it's fear. Maybe it's self-doubt. Maybe you think that you will not be able to carve out the time in your life. Maybe you feel like you are going to fail. Maybe you feel like you're going to embarrass yourself. These are all fears that get in the way of us pursuing what we really want to do. And launch is the second key to success, because if you never give yourself the confidence, the courage, and the faith to launch your game, you're never going to run a game. And thus, the only true way to completely fail at running games is never to try, to give up before you have started. This is why I call this a core foundation of success. This is one of the 5 keys to successfully being a game master. We have a lot of game masters in the world. Oh, this is great. This is great. But imagine how many people have not run games. How many more people have not done it because they have some kind of fear holding them back. What we see are the game masters who actually took the step and launched. They ran their first game, and then they ran another one, and then they ran another one. What we don't see are the countless people who said no and didn't launch because they were stuck in place, afraid of what might happen. And I'm talking about people who might want to. I'm not saying everyone should go do it. I'm talking about the people who want to but are not doing it, right? Okay, so launching involves actually taking the leap, actually putting in the effort, actually making the sacrifice, actually facing your fears and overcoming them. Um, I love the metaphor that if you are, afraid of the storms, then your ship will never leave harbor. Right? You might be a sailor, you might be a captain, and you think, I would go sailing, I would go adventuring, I would go seek fame and fortune, but what if storms come by? But friend, boats were not built to sit in the harbor. You were not built to just say no to the things you want in life. No, I'm afraid. What if I fail? Friend, what if you never try? That's the real danger. So this is what I want to tell you today is if you're afraid of launching, launch. Now, most people watching this have probably launched. They're probably already game masters. But maybe there's something keeping you from taking it to the next level, right? Face that fear too. Launch, do the thing, and then deal with the problems that come as they come. Ever Better says, we were meant to live for so much more. I have a feeling that's a Switchfoot quote. We were meant to live for so much more. Isn't that a Switchfoot quote? Heck yeah. Stewart says, fear of never trying, fear of failing. All right. Now this is going to take us to point number 3, guys. And this is the one I think that most people get wrong. Ever Better says yes. Heck yeah. Someone from my generation. That was our music. When I was young, that was the music I was hearing. Although I will say I was more of a Reliant K and a Skillet guy than a Switchfoot guy. But nowadays I listen to a lot of Switchfoot. All right. Now, wait a minute. Stewart says, I mean, fear of never trying should be so much stronger than the fear of failure. Yes. The fear of never trying, if you never try, then, yeah, you may not look foolish for doing that. I understand. I really do. I understand the fear of like maybe looking foolish or launching and failing. But it's also true that, you know, it is so scary to think that we may never move forward. Like we get a finite time to live. And what if you spend it characterized by that fear of running the game? Right? What if 50, 60, 70, 90 years from now you are still saying, I don't think I'd be a good game master. And then you look back and you realize, what could it have been like if I would have just done it? If I would have adapted the GL and Philosopher's Framework, which I'm about to share step 3 here in a minute, but what if I would have done that? How many amazing stories could have been told at my table? How many amazing experiences could I have given gamers? How many amazing characters and NPCs and moments and amazing cinematic combats could we have had? How many nights could have been spent laughing about fun things that happened in the game, creating true joy around the table? How much of that didn't happen in my life because I wanted to do something, but I did not launch? Stuart is exactly right about this. Panpiper says, I jammed my first game 47 years ago, long before we had Advice Online or even Dragon Magazine to warn us of the things we could do wrong. Accordingly, I made every mistake in the book. Good way to go. Learn. 100%. And that's going to lead us to step 3, which is the one I think that a lot of people get wrong once they start, including me. And I'm going to tell you why. Analyze, adapt, and evolve. This is step 3. What does this mean? When we set a goal, we've already taken a huge first step. Then we launch. Amazing. Most people don't even get this far. But then we fail. We make every mistake. As Panpiper says, we make every mistake in the book. We mess up everything, right? We run a bad session. We, don't do a good job with spotlight control. Our story is weird. The clues in our mystery didn't make a damn bit of sense. Whatever it is, we fumbled that combat, like we did all the wrong things, made all the mistakes. Players quit your game. Do you know that when I first started running games, I had several incidences where I tried to play with my friends and they literally got mad at me and left halfway through the first game. Like literally were like they got mad at me and left. They were like, "This is so stupid. Why are we doing this? I don't understand what you're doing." It was because I was making so many mistakes. Also, I didn't really understand how it was supposed to go. Sort of like what Pan Piper's saying. Back in my day, there probably was info on the internet, but I mean, then again, I was 9 before I saw a computer screen with internet information on it. The internet didn't exist when I was younger. Now, when I was a teenager, there was internet. I wasn't smart enough to look this stuff up online. I just tried to run games and it failed catastrophically until I learned. And then eventually I analyzed, I adapted, I evolved, I analyzed what went wrong. It's like, okay, where did that go wrong? Because I don't want people to leave and get mad at me. I want to run good games. I want to run games people enjoy. So what am I doing wrong? You have to make theories about what you think is going wrong. You got to look for data, and then you have to come up with a theory. Okay, here's my theory. Here are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things that went wrong. And then you need to adapt. So we have analyzed, we just analyzed, then we have to adapt. Okay, how am I going to change next time? How am I going to change? I'm going to do better spotlight control. I'm going to let players have more agency. I have to make players feel like, their characters are an important part of the game. I have to give them the story spotlight, not try to just write a novel in front of them. All these things, right? We know all these things, but like this is my list of things. It's like I need to adapt in these ways, and then we have evolve. We have to understand that we may have to change who we are to succeed at our goal, right? You may think to yourself, this is just how I run games. I like to do big monologues and then they can kind of they can either go with the flow or they can leave, right? This is rigid thinking. But if this leads to games that are not as successful, friend, it may be time to evolve. It may be time to change how you think about the game. It's maybe time to be more flexible in your thinking because we must be fluid. Bruce Lee said, we must be fluid like water because water can fill every vessel. I'm going to look up that quote. I wasn't even water quote. I wasn't even thinking that I was going to say this, but Bruce Lee said, "Be water, my friend." Where's the full quote? Empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. You put water into a cup, it becomes a cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes a bottle. You put it into a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now, water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend. This metaphor encourages adjusting to circumstances rather than resisting them, highlighting the power of adaptability over rigidity, right? So this is what we want to do. We want to evolve. So we have analyze, adapt, and evolve as step 3. Analyze our shortcomings, analyze the mistakes, come up with a hypothesis with the data, figure out how we made, how we got here in the mess up place. And then we need to adapt, make a plan for how to make it better next time. And then we have to evolve. We have to change as a result of our data we've learned. And we never stop changing, guys. I've been running games for 24 years. Every single game, I am analyzing, adapting, and evolving. Sometimes it's in big ways. Sometimes it's in little ways. Sometimes I think, how could I have run 24 damn years of games and not known this? And I'll be mad at myself, guys. But this is part of the process, right? Kayla says, if you're a new GM, making adjustments on the fly can be overwhelming, especially if you have more knowledgeable players. How can you not get overwhelmed with that? So the answer is that you believe in yourself and you launch into it, right? You may think, man, I've been playing with these people. They know about all the monsters. They know all the lore. I don't even know what the spells do, man. I'm just trying to run my first game. So it's like you launch into it and then, there's a point where you have to trust yourself and understand where you're at, right? So it's like, Kayla says, sus, this believing in myself stuff, sus. Maybe a little sus. As a mentor of mine used to say, I don't really buy into this woo-woo business, but, then he would say, but Pan Piper says, learn from your players and keep going. You're still the GM. They still need you to run the game, else they would not be there. And here's another thing. In reference to Kayla's question of when you're the new GM and you have to play with more knowledgeable players, make adjustments on the fly. When I was a new GM playing with more experienced players, I found myself falling back on homebrew a lot because I still wanted to give them a new experience. So rather than run things in the monster manual, I would homebrew things. And then they would be like, whoa, this is new. Like they'd never seen this. But then also there's a fluidity that comes in there, right? When I'm playing, I still to this day play with people who know more about the game than me. And then when they bring up rules things, it's like, oh, really? Oh, go ahead. Tell us what you have to say. So it's like it's not like a me versus them thing. It's understanding that I have the game. I have a lot of things I can do to run a good game. And just like Pam Piper says, it's really important to understand. I'm trying to think of the best way to word this. It's really important to understand that when I have faith in myself, when I have confidence in myself, and this is going to sound weird, but when I just like eliminate all doubt and I just dive in, like it's almost like fake it till you make it, but it's not like that. It's just become it. So I just don't doubt myself. I just do what I think is best. I do not second guess myself. That's where we get into trouble is when you think, oh, I'm going to introduce this monster and I'm going to have this scene in the castle. But then you think, but so-and-so has been playing for like 30 years. What if they think this is stupid? Right there, that's called second guessing yourself. That is the enemy of creativity. What you want to do is lean into it, own it. You want to be the kind of GM who does not doubt yourself. Instead, you run that monster to the full best of your ability. And maybe the 30-year veteran says, you ran that monster totally wrong. They're supposed to do this. It doesn't matter. Because did the player have a good time? Right? Usually, in my experience, new GMs sometimes are best at coming up with fresh stuff. But it's only when they trust themselves. Also, experienced players shouldn't be judging new GMs. They should be supporting them and enjoying the story. Understand that the context of the session is a closed system. Just because other lore, the monster manual, the magic items in the DMG, just because they function a certain way, doesn't mean that a new GM has to abide by every single one of those rules. Doesn't mean their world isn't different. Doesn't mean that even in the context of that session, it's not different. And that is okay. Because we are gaming to some extent in a closed system when we're at the table. And when I learned that, it gave me a lot more confidence because I learned, okay, I can homebrew things. They don't have to match everything in the book. And that's okay. That's okay. Anyway, I hope that answers the question. Really good question. Stuart says, that's my biggest issue, Kayla. My players know the game and rules so much better than I do. It's good because they can help, but can be disheartening. It is good that they can help. However, what I would encourage Stuart to do or anyone to do is to move forward with a full confidence in yourself. And if people nitpick at you, they make fun of you, if they try to, get down on you for like not knowing the lore perfectly, blah, 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 that's not a good way to be. I, as an experienced player, would never come to a new GM's table and treat them that way. I would treat the game as a new experience with a new GM, and that's the way it should be. So also remember that there is some nastiness out there, but it's not your fault. AWOL Warrior says, just role play as someone who believes in themselves. 100%. Kayla then says, I'm definitely not running anything anytime soon, but I'm definitely curious. I've really been having a lot of fun writing and want to share my stuff with players. Heck yeah, you should do it. Be the GM that drops a big ass gold dragon on a level 3 party. Yes. Do that. Boy, whatever GM decided to do that must have been a genius. That's all I can say. Pan Piper says, gold dragons are good dragons. TPK the party and let them wake up captured, forced to listen to a lecture by the dragon. Yes. Kayla says, this gold dragon is questionable, and I'm still on a mission to convince my group to find it eventually. And then Flip Out says, our party nukes gold dragons. All of these are true statements. These are all true statements. And Kayla and Flip Out both play in my Wednesday night game, and I literally threw an adult gold dragon at them at level 3. This is true statements. And that dragon was indeed not good. It had been twisted by the evil magic of Scalethar and was now bent toward pursuing the mission of the Rite of the Crimson Scale. Kayla says, with bags, we do. We did not consent. It was scary. Stuart says, too funny. My level 4 group just ran into Bahamut disguised as a gnome. Oh my God. They saved him from goblins and got to speak with him in his true form and received a boon from him. That's pretty wild. But that's fun. That kind of stuff is fun. I think that's fun. All right, let's move on to step number 4. Here is the next step. And this, once again, this is true in all areas of life, but this is so true in games. Scale the unscalable human processes. Okay. All right. Here's what I mean by this. When you're running games, there's a lot of things that can be systematized. And to a point, this is good because especially if you start running more games, adopting systems to help make your processes run smoother is really important and very good. However, if you systematize too much, you start to leave out the human processes. I made this mistake in like phase 2 of running my start playing games. I started out trying to onboard all the players I would meet with them one-on-one. We would onboard, we would spend like an hour doing the what do you call it? Session 0, right? So I'm trying to think of how to say this. And then, it was pretty good. However, I found myself running through a more rigid onboarding process, okay? And this also played a part in having players kind of come and go fast. Like churn became kind of a problem in this game or in this phase of my start playing games, okay? Sort of been back in like February, like early February. Okay, so when I learned that churn was becoming a problem and I was spending all these hours on players who may leave, I backed off and I started to systematize the onboarding process to the point where I didn't do an in-person session 0. I only ran it through Discord. There were some good things about this. It saved me a ton of time, saved me hours of work every week. However, I also started to believe that this was leading to players not feeling as connected. And then I adopted my new process, which is the process I use right now for my games. I do meet with people one-on-one for a session 0. However, it's not just about systematically onboarding them into the game. It's actually about a lot more than that. It is about connecting with them as a person, just like getting on a call with them, turning on my camera and saying, hey, I'm Josh. Great to meet you. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about your game experience. It's like we're going to spend 10 minutes becoming friends first. This was not something I did before because in the beginning, I'll be honest, running start playing games, I was kind of nervous. I didn't really know. Like I kind of tried to get them in and onboard them, and it was all about the lore and the character. But now it's like, hey, let's slow down a minute. Let's slow down a little bit. Let's get to be friends first. Let's talk a little bit. Let's talk about your character concept. Do you want me to do a deep lore dive, or do you want me to go really light? I don't want to overwhelm you. We're just taking it very, very casually. And here's the thing. In this process, I have learned to have better connection with my players, I think, from the get-go. And I enjoy that. It does take time. However, the result has been thus far, since adopting this process, I think that people are way more likely to stay. And another thing I do is I really put into practice trying to give every character a significant part in the adventure, even before they jump into session 1. Now, a lot of you GMs out there may think, well, obviously, that's the best thing to do. However, I will also point out that running 4 games a week is new to me. And my systematic brain at first tried to systematize it to make it all very efficient. But there are some elements of this human enterprise that we cannot scale, we cannot systematize because they're human processes. Okay. So we have to learn to scale the unscalable human processes, learning to make time for the humans we're going to be gaming with. And I'm gonna be honest, this is just as true in relationships. You have to spend time with other people. You can't just think, oh, I'll get into a relationship and then everything will get super efficient. To a point, we need to stop thinking about efficiency. We need to realize we're going to have conversations. Unexpected things are going to come up. We're going to have to solve problems, troubleshoot. We're gonna need to spend some time sometimes, negotiating, talking about what we want, coming to terms with a conflict or a solution to an issue, communicating, right? Because relationships are a human process, just like games are a human process, TTRPGs anyway. So we need to scale the unscalable human processes. There's no amount of systematizing you can do that's going to replace actually becoming friends with your players, actually having a good time with them as a human, actually learning to relate to them in a way that is going to make them feel like a significant included part of the adventure. It looks like Stuart and Kayla have plans for a game. Let's see here. I'm taking a minute to read some notes here. Kayla says, that sounds so fun. 4 is my favorite number. Stuart says, 1 spot free in that group. And then says, plugging my game. Sorry, Jimpy. No worries. I love it. And then Kayla says, heck yeah, message me the info on Discord. Heck yeah. And then Kayla says, well, Nira certainly isn't going anywhere except to chase Lumi and drink more with Lyra. Yes. And then Stuart says, haha, yes. Okay, very good. I just want to catch up on those notes. All right. So that's number 4, scale the unscalable human processes. Okay. Now, let's move on to the final tip. Tip number 5, track and repeat. Okay. Now, in the beginning, we set a goal. And then we launch. This is good. You plan your game, you decide what the goal is of your game, and then you launch it. Then, once you launch, you make all kinds of mistakes and you fail at all kinds of things, and it's terrible. You're running terrible games. No, it may not be terrible, but all right. Then you analyze, adapt, and evolve to overcome those problems. Then you learn to scale the unscalable human processes. You humanize the process. You make your games about the humans across from you. This is hard to do with a spreadsheet. This requires actual human investment, right? But then we move to this final phase, which is track and repeat. So you're going along, and if you continue to analyze, adapt, and evolve, you're going to realize that you're going to get better as you go. But you're never going to stop learning. And so when we take this out long term, here's what tends to happen to people. People tend to stagnate and plateau. So when you start running games, it's new and you're trying to get better. But then you can, once you reach a certain level of what I'll call comfortable success, you might just start to stagnate. You might just start to, flow, not really working on yourself anymore. Maybe it's even getting a little boring sometimes. Maybe you're getting a little burnt out sometimes, right? So this is when track and repeat comes in. What I believe in is you want to track your data points. So this could mean like player satisfaction, churn rate. If you're on start playing, maybe income level. How long players are staying in your game before they bounce, that kind of thing, right? And then as you're tracking that data, you want to track it month over month. And then you want to look at the data and you want to think, okay, well, obviously you're going to have some up months, some down months. But as a general rule, we should be improving over time. If you're not, if we're just staying stagnant, that's actually a little bit of like there's no such thing really as stagnation. When we stagnate, we're actually deteriorating, right? Stuart says, "Uh-oh, GMP's tired. Need to buy him a coffee, folks." Link in the description. Thank you. I'm literally gonna go get a coffee or an energy drink right after this. I was gonna go before the live stream, however, I ran out of time. I was busy making post-session notes. Okay. Mythos says, at what character level do you find it a bit harder to evolve new players? The higher the level goes, the harder it is, man. I think that adding new players before level 5 is a lot easier than after level 5. I think that when you get to level 10, it's starting to get real complicated. I think that the higher the level goes, the more work you need to put in to integrate that character in, right? That's what I'm thinking right now as I'm saying that. I think that I haven't done a whole lot of integrating new characters after level 10. I have done it in the past, but it was different. It was at my home game. I wasn't running start playing games that way. I was running at home and I was using D&D as a way to bring people into my life and make new friends. And I kind of had a revolving door of players sometimes. Sometimes players would come in and play for 3 sessions and then they would just leave. And at the time it didn't even register that I was like maybe not running good games. I thought I was running pretty good games because everyone was so pumped for every game. It's more like these humans who just kind of like accepted invitations would come in and try it out for a few sessions, but then they would find something else they like better and they'd go do that. Right. So it's like, it wasn't that complicated and it wasn't that intense for them. I had a core group of like 6 to 7 players who were like in it to win it. And then we had like a few other players who would just kind of rotate in and out. And this made it kind of fun. And it was fine. But as a general rule, I have not yet in my start playing games, I've not yet reached a point of integrating players beyond level 5. Level 5 is the highest level I've integrated so far. And I think that that's still pretty doable. It's still pretty new, but I know that at level 10, past level 10, things get way more complicated. So that's just something to keep in mind. Great question. Really good question. Anyway, so track and repeat. We don't want to just stagnate. We want to try to constantly be improving at the things we care about. If you reach a point of plateau, stagnation, it's time to go back to the drawing board, time to come up with some new stuff, time to shake up the system a little bit. Try to find a way to break through to another level. And so that's why I say track and repeat. We want to track our momentum over the long term, and then we want to repeat the analyze and adapt step. We really want to repeat the whole thing. You might come to realize maybe I need to shift my goal for my games. Maybe I want to change the goal. Maybe I want to change the way I'm running games. Maybe I want to change the foundational reasons for I'm running games to begin with. Maybe you need to launch new games. Maybe you need to analyze, adapt, and evolve more for the new games, right? Panpiper says, I have tracked little. I have had few goals. I have followed few principles. The one thing I've always done, however, is caring about the people I work with, caring about my customers. That caring for me has been more than sufficient to motivate me to learn, to grow, to get better. Success followed naturally. That is not to say that other advice is not good to follow. That is really good advice. Stuart says, I bought GMP 2 coffees. Kayla, get him to send you one. That is so nice of you. Thank you so much, Stuart. I really appreciate you. That is so nice of you. Thank you so much. I'm definitely going to go get a coffee after this live stream. Heck yeah. But Pam Piper, you say, the thing I've always done, however, is care. That's actually really, really important. Kayla says, share the wealth. You heard him. I totally heard you. I will share the wealth. I will do it. But no, caring is something that most humans just don't do enough of, partly because it takes work and effort to care, and partly because we make ourselves vulnerable when we care, but also caring requires us to take a certain amount of accountability, responsibility. When you care, you say to yourself, I have to do something about this. Like, I have to do something to make this better. I want to do something to make this better, and that's actually important to me. And I think in this day and age, it's relatively rare to find that most humans care about very much. And I think that it also opens massive opportunity when you do care about a thing like running games and you really deploy that caring. You're going to, as Pam Popper said, you're naturally going to improve. It's going to motivate you. I do believe that understanding a framework for that improvement can help you make the process faster, make the process more clear. But without caring, we're probably not even going to care enough to adopt the process anyway. So care comes first. Very well said, Pan Piper. Very well said. Great comment. So with that being said, those are my 5 steps to GM success. I follow this framework, or I try my best to follow this framework for everything in my life. And I will admit, it is really good to see that when I follow this framework, usually if I go ahead and I set a goal and I launch a thing, if I actually analyze, adapt, and evolve, scale unscalable human processes, and track and repeat, if I actually do those things, then pretty much, you're pretty much guaranteed to see upward growth. That's what this process guarantees. So imagine that. Imagine how good it would be to think, I can start a thing like running a game, and I know it's going to improve. There's just no question about this. It's a mathematical certainty that it's going to improve with time. I believe that when you care and when you deploy a framework like this, that's what's going to happen. And that is exciting, guys. Imagine that in your relationships, in your money game, in your D&D, with your kids as a parent, with your pets, cleaning your house, right? You launch a thing that you care about and you deploy a systematized framework like this. And then you know that it's only going to get better. You know it. Isn't that exciting? That is exciting, and I think that brings hope. I think that hope is an important thing for humans. And I think that part of the reason I love to think about this is because I love to have hope for the future, and I think everyone else needs hope. So boom, there we go. That's going to be the end of this one. Thank you all so much for coming back to another episode of GM Philosophy in the afternoon. Kayla says this was a really great stream. Thank you so much, Kayla. I really appreciate you. I appreciate everyone who shows up and interacts. And I have links in the descriptions to all my stuff. Check it out. Also, make sure to join the GM Philosophy Discord. Link is in the description. Smash that thumbs up button. Hit that subscribe button. Empowering game masters to run better games is the goal. Thank you all so much, and I will see you on the next one.